Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies, and welcome to a very quiet episode of Toshiothunder. My wife is sleeping on the couch behind me, but I thought now was the perfect time to talk about this subject. There have been some changes to the Arcade Enduring Confrontation event, and for the most part they're for the better, for the meta. But in the end, not a ton has changed. However, there is an attitude of newness about the game, and there's a few key things that have definitely been swapped around for better or for worse. The proof will be in the pudding, and the pudding's in the eating. And we get a nice kill there on the hind, which brings me to specifically what the changes are. Now, although this is an arcade mode, there will no longer be mid-air rearming of aircraft. Fuel still remains limited, which is kind of unfortunate because there is no fuel indicator on your heads-up display. You have to go into the cockpit and check the fuel dial specifically, so enjoy doing that. Although most helicopters carry enough fuel even at their minimum load that you won't really have to worry about that until later in the match. And now that you can run out of ordnance, burning through 35 minutes worth of fuel is even less likely. To get back to the change up in the meta, because there's no more mid-air refueling, matches tend to last much longer, with teams no longer focusing on climbing to high altitude and Hydra bombing enemy airfields, although this is still very possible, as you see me doing here, and that leads into the new meta. There are several ways to play the game mode, all of which can earn you decent RP and Silver Lions. The first is, as you saw, to go after ground targets, and that's something that the AH1Z XM30 does nicely, with its 30mm gun pods that have tons and tons of heat grenade ammunition. Although the penetration on those rounds is, I think, somewhere around 40, or is it 70mm? I can't recall. It does not go through the front plate of a T-34, so there is that. What was I going with at that point? I'm a little bit tired. Basically, now it makes more sense to carry different loadouts to perform different missions. Here you see us in a airfield strike setup, where we climbed toward the enemy airstrip and finished one off and then pumped our remaining rockets into another one. We're going to respawn in the Cobra and go for another rocket run. We'll be climbing, and this brings me to the new meta. I'm trying out things. I did some ground strike, and that was fairly fun and entertaining, although targets tend to run out fairly quickly in the larger matches, and you're much more likely to be intercepted if you're slow and low, even though that matters a little bit less in helicopters than it does, as we dodge an incoming heat-seeking missile. Now we know there's an enemy probably somewhere behind us, judging from the trajectory of that missile, and he wants us. There, we've spotted him. Now he's coming in, and you're going to see one of the first relatively high altitude dogfights you can see with the helicopters. So here we are, dodging 20mm rotary cannon shots quite effectively, I might add. Now we're actually defensive flying, so this is a thing if you have enough altitude that you can engage in helicopter combat, and soon we will have our own guns on target. He's in a less than stable position, flying away from us, giving us a great chance to light him up with the chain guns, the Gatling guns, and we do not miss out on the opportunity. Dogfighting in helicopters is something of an evolving art, as there isn't really a guide out there as far as I'm aware, but you definitely want to keep your airspeed up and never turn your back on an enemy if you can at all help it. So learning different maneuvers is definitely helpful in helicopters. You saw us using a lot of lifting the nose and performing a roll maneuver, which basically ends up making us do a barrel roll, which is very effective for dodging missiles and just about anything else. And unlike with a fixed-wing aircraft, there's no need to circle in a large radius to go after your prey. It ends up being a lot more about where your nose is facing and horizontal advantage. If you're above your enemy, your turret can aim down for most vehicles. And of course, if you're below, it's much more difficult for you to get guns on target. What you'll want to do is to nose up, but if your opponent is above you and he sees where you're aiming your nose, he can get in behind you. So it's almost like a mid-air wrestling match, and in that sense, it actually ended up being a lot of fun, especially considering I'm going up against vehicles that have a much higher battle rating than me, and yet in an air-to-air roll they don't have all that many advantages, especially considering I can spray and pray with my miniguns. So that is the current state of the interceptor role, or the PvP role in arcade and during confrontation battles for helicopters. I would advise climbing if you plan on going after enemy bases or intercepting enemy helicopters. Although it makes you more visible, you definitely have a plethora more options than a low-flying helicopter does. So that has been a serious change over what I've mostly experienced while being in a ground strike role. And if you thought we were done assassinating helicopters of a higher battle rating than ours, well, we're not quite done. I'm trying new things. Here comes another heat-seeking missile. We pull the same maneuver to dodge it, as well as the incoming that will be 12-7 Dushka fire, or effectively what is a Dushka? It's like a triple Dushka. And now it's just a matter of who gets guns on target first. We're not flying straight toward him. We're rolling just a bit to the left and the right to throw off his aim, especially since at closer ranges he'll get a lead indicator, and we do manage to take him down. That initial critical hit, I believe, took down his gunner, which leaves him only with rockets, and that's why he opened up with the rockets at close range. At least, I think that's why. I could be mistaken. But there was another heat-seeking missile wielding enemy aircraft, and getting those kills at higher battle ratings than yours should award you with the commensurate skill matters, or rank doesn't matter, or what have you, medal, giving you some extra silver lines. And here you see us at the end of the match. We did a lot of ground strike, we did a little bit of damaging bases, and those are giving the same rewards that they gave before, around 1,000 RP for a full 70-some rockets into an enemy base. Not terrible. And also important still for controlling the field and winning matches, just as it was before, although now you'll have to coordinate that more with your team and perhaps pull off tricks like losing all your rockets, and then instead of returning to base, jumping out of your aircraft and getting into a new helicopter straight from a nearby landing pad, which is not too expensive in terms of silver lions, so it's a very viable strategy if you don't mind that hit to your KD, and I definitely don't. So that's the way things are looking right now, effectively. One thing that I didn't mention up to this point that you definitely want to know is that you're also able to spawn unlimitedly in your higher battle rating vehicles, so feel free to fill your lineup with the more exciting and higher rank vehicles. There's no longer a 5 or 10 minute timer between when you can use those things, and the premium Huey and the other premium equivalents for other tech trees are definitely useful in that they have some good equipment, and the repair cost is lower than the standard tech tree variants. As you see, you can deal with higher rank vehicles, although they're definitely going to have several advantages over you. One aspect of helicopter combat that is emerging now and will be changing in the future is that few people really know how to gain the advantage in a helicopter dogfight, as well as people are still learning how their guns aim, especially with relative velocities between your own helicopter and the enemy. That's definitely something worth looking into. My recommendation, practice lots of ground strike. That is one of the best ways to learn how your guns work and to get a feel for how they aim, because you can know everything about how to adjust for velocities and the specific nature of your gun, be it parallax or projectile speed or what have you. But if you don't get the practice in on firing those guns on target, you're just not going to be able to perform in the high impact environment of a dogfight, or as it were with helicopters, a wrestling match. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this look at the changes to helicopters in the arcade mode and during confrontation. Again, unlike before, you can now spawn in whichever vehicle you choose, with no restriction on when you can use that vehicle, only having to pay the respawn cost whenever you spawn in after your first spawn. Other than that, the big change is that ammunition no longer refills while in flight, so you're definitely benefited by studying your weapons, getting a feel for how to use them efficiently, and choosing the right loadout for the occasion. Do you want to be the assassin, flying light and nimble, gaining altitude and dropping down on unsuspecting enemy helicopters with your miniguns or whatever nose-mounted anti-aircraft equipment you desire? Will you be the scumbag in the AH1Z, flying to high altitude and launching heat-seeking missiles at your enemies until you decide to close and use your what are they called? The guided anti-tank missiles, or even to deign so far as to knife fight with someone using your very effective chin-mounted 20mm Gatling gun. It's really, or should I call it a Vulcan? It's really up to you. Or would you rather be that ground strike boy, the poor, I should say the pure, innocent soul who just wants to hydra red dots that don't have feelings because they're the binary emotionless product of Gaijin Entertainment theirself. The AI, I mean. And, well, I've been that guy, and I think that is my preferred way to play. But every now and then, after being at low speed and low energy and getting jumped on by somebody in a much more sophisticated weapon system than mine, you just want to get a little revenge and maybe just camp their base a little bit. They did choose to respawn there after all. Anyway, there's lots of options. And all in all, the major change to the meta is that everything matters now, And whether you're using ATGMs to take down tanks or loading up your experimental cannon pods, even the wing-mounted 20mm Vulcan that the AH1Z has access to, a very deadly piece of equipment. Or if you're flying light, there's always some use that stands out now because every shot counts. In case you were wondering, the Huey XM30 is very, very effective in a ground strike role, and also packs a serious punch in an air-to-air role, although with the lower fire rate of the 30mm cannons, your chances to get a hit are significantly lower than anything that has a Vulcan or a Gatling, even than the Super Dishka, I don't know what to call it, that's mounted on the hind. All in all, these changes to arcade mode enduring confrontation are very wanted. I believe that the majority of players benefit from these changes, and hopefully they will also implement some things to make matches more exciting and interesting and diverse in the future. Gaijin continues to evolve helicopter gameplay, and I feel that a heavy presence of AI ground targets is definitely part of making these vehicles fun. Again, they can be entertaining and engaging in a PvP head-to-head environment, as I believe I demonstrated effectively, but I think that works even better when your real goal is to take out tactical targets and positions in order to support this ground war that is ongoing and ever evolving. And that is the heart of enduring confrontation. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'm looking forward to seeing your perspective. One of the things that I've actually enjoyed a lot about making these videos and playing the helicopter mode specifically is that it's a tighter community, much like the sim community, so there's a lot of people that you see again and again. And once again, if you're wondering if helicopters are fun and dynamic and engaging, I believe that the answer was yes when they first came out, and it continues to be improved from that point. There are ups and downs, and Gaijin has been rightfully accused in the past of making adjustments with a sledgehammer, but I believe that they've learned to be a bit more subtle, and that shows with the development of helicopters. There's definitely a wide list of things that need to be looked at. One of the major factors being the flight models for the helicopters. They seem to perform realistically enough in an arcade environment, but the main thing is the Huey XM30 with the experimental pods, as well as this Cobra with the maximum load of rockets, really tends to wobble around a lot, even when you're not really altering your heading all that much. And that would be an aspect of the flight instructor, or the mouse flight, that I would like to see tuned a bit, and I think that will happen if helicopters continue to get attention from the developers. There are a few other things with regard to enduring confrontation that I would like to see worked on. One of the major ones being disappearing enemy units, or ones that just explode for no reason. I believe it's because there's a cap on how many enemy units there can be, but if I'm within, say 3 or 4 kilometers, even half a kilometer of an enemy, and then it just blinks out of existence because more need to spawn, 13 kilometers away or some crazy thing like that. I kind of feel a bit cheated when I'm running around in my ground strike role and that's the only target within 2 or 3 miles. But as I mentioned, and to wrap all of this up, this is an emerging game mode with a diverse and also unique set of things to learn and get a feel for, and it has been my pleasure to get a handle on those things. Beyond that, I really enjoy making custom camouflages for the helicopters. As you can see with this AH1Z, I have a nice custom camouflage that I made myself, and I look forward to unlocking the higher tier helicopters. So I guess that's all. There's definitely more to say, and I will definitely have to make more videos on this subject. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.